Hi everyone, welcome back to today's video. What I'm going to do is show you how I make my pork pies. In my bowl here I've got 500 grams of minced pork, and in here is my very own pork pie seasoning that I make up. It is absolutely beautiful. There's some parsley in there, there's some sage, there's some nutmeg, obviously white pepper to give it that lovely peppery flavour, and a few other secret bits and pieces. And then these are my normal pie tins that I use. These are about a £1 pie tin, but a friend of mine, he actually makes his in like foil casings. So what I'm going to do today is actually have a go at using the foils. If I've got some pastry and some mix left over, I'll do one in my normal tins, but I'm going to give it a go in his. And obviously this is hot water crust pastry. I made a batch this morning and it's been chilling for a few hours. If you guys want to know how I make my pastry, please just drop a comment and I will do a video, because I can't remember, it sounds stupid, I've made this loads of times, but I can't remember exactly how much the ingredients weigh. It's your standard flour, lard, butter, water. I just can't remember the amounts I use, because obviously it varies depending how many pies I've got to make. So what I'm going to do is actually start off by lining my dish first. And then a lot of people think with hot water crust pastry you have to use it straight away, and to be honest you don't, because if you try working with hot water crust as soon as you've got it out of your mixer, it will try to constrict back in to its original shape. So of course if you've made a lovely batch of pastry, lined your tin, before you've even filled the tin it will be shrunk down the sides, so you actually have to chill it down. So I'm just making it pliable, and it is a really easy pastry to make, and once you've chilled it, say it's easy to work with. So all I'm going to do is just roll my pastry, turning it 90 degrees, and it is quite a forgiving pastry, so if it starts tearing up on you, you can easily repair it, even in your pie moulds or any pie you're making. It's really easy to patch it up. But even this recipe for the pastry is quite an old recipe, and it works really well. And like I said, I use it for my pork pies, my game pies, and what I call manor house pies. So if you guys have ever seen a gala pie that's made in like a loaf tin, I make one with game, and I'll call it a manor house pie, still filled with jelly. So if I've got one of his tins, or one of my tins here, I can actually cut a little bit of that away, and then the thickness I'm going for, or what you should achieve really, is about the same thickness as a 20p coin, because if your pastry is too thin it will actually split in the cooking process in your tin, and obviously if it's too thick it won't be cooked at all. So once you've got your desired length, you just work it into the corners of your tin, and then at the sides, because you just want to be careful not to pierce the bottom, because the fat from the pork will leak out and make it stick, and that's one reason why my friend uses foils, and he actually has it in a press. I make all mine by hand, I don't have a press, but he weighs it all out. It took him a while to get the right method, but he weighs everything out, puts them in the press exactly the same as you would with a metal one, but he just uses foils. I don't know why, but he says it's better, so I thought I'd give it a go. So I've lined my tin. So to the pork mince, I'm adding my seasoning, and if you guys want to have a go at making your own seasoning, give it a bash. But to be honest, online there is companies out there who have some really good seasonings. But again, this is one I've had for years, and I've always used it, and people seem to always come back for more. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So once I've given this quite a good mix, we're going to load up the tins. So you don't want to fill them right to the top, because the fat will come out, and if you've got too much meat in there, it will just overflow, and then the fat will burn. So in this excuse me, I've got a bit of pepper there. In this foil, I'm actually coming about, what, 1/4 of an inch or so from the top. Just like that. So what I'm going to do is just wash my hands and then get the other one ready. Right, so I've just filled my pie tin. I'm going to show you how I lid them up now. So far I've made two, one in the foil and one in my one. So in here I've just got one beaten egg, courtesy of Simon. So you put a good amount of egg wash round the top. Make your hole, and that's going to be for the jelly and to let the steam out. And then give it a firm push round the edge. And then to trim it up, I'm going to have to use a very large knife, but I normally get myself a little knife just to trim away all of this excess pastry, because then that can be rolled up ready for the next pie. So that is effectively your pie made. And then to crimp it, just get your fingers together like that, and your thumb, and you're pushing together. That's the way I do it. So you just make a nice little crimp around the outside of the pie. And also what that does, apart from sealing the pie together, any fat that comes out of the vent hole should be kept within the top of the pie. So for the next one, this is the foil one. Again, egg wash around the top, hole for the jelly and steam to go. I need to make that slightly a bit bigger. Everything's falling down now. So that goes over the top. Trim off the excess on here. So for this recipe that I'm showing you, the pastry that I made, it will make 4 of my pork pie size tins. Or if you're seeing the small, what I call the standard steak and kidney pies you can get, It will make 6 of them. So I'm going to crimp this differently now. I'm actually going to use a fork. Just go all the way around the edge. And again, it's just making a different type of crimp. And there we have it. And then the last thing you need to do is give the tops of the pie a good brush of the egg wash. And then when you use tins like this, be careful not to get your egg mix down the side, because it will burn and it will also make the pie stick to the tin. So I just carefully brush a bit just on the inside on the top, and then all around the top of the lid. So I'm going to sort this pastry out. But there's my 2 types of pork pie, and they're going to go in to a preheated oven set at 170 for 45 to 50 minutes. Well guys, the pork pies are out of the oven and they look and smell absolutely amazing. They've got a real nice colour to them, and it looks like they haven't stuck, which is always a good thing. So what I'm going to do now is just let these little beauties sit out for an hour, and then we'll talk about the gel. So the pies have been resting for a good hour now, so they're easier to handle. And what I've got in here is my stock, or the gel that will be in the middle of the pies. Now there's a couple of ways you can do your gel. You can actually buy sachets of it online. You follow their instructions. I believe you just put the sachets of granules in a pan with some water, bring it to the boil. Or you can buy some gelatin leaves from your supermarket, dilute that down with some stock and do it that way. But I've done it old school with this. I've actually used pig's trotters for mine. And again, if you guys want to see a video on how to make the stock or the gel for pies with the trotters, let me know in the comments and I'll happily do that. But rule of thumb, I use about 2 trotters per 2 litres of water. Obviously you've got your stock veg, some herbs and some seasoning in there. Boil everything up, reduce it down, strain it, simmer it, and you're left with obviously the natural gelatin that's within the pig's trotter. So what I'm going to do is actually fill my pies now with the gel. And I've got a nice little syringe that's nice and flat at the bottom, and it's actually a kid's medicine syringe, but it works a treat. And then I should actually add as well, when I've finished my stock, I get the desired amount I need, and I've actually just added some parsley to mine. It just gives a nice little fleck of green when you cut into the pie. Then all you do is just take your time filling each pie with this gel, and then once they are completely full, you want to leave them out at room temperature for probably 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then once everything is slightly cool, you pop it in the fridge, ideally for 8 hours, or I should say actually a minimum of 8 hours, but ideally they actually want to be in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours just to really get everything cold and all the gels set. But to be honest, every time I've made them, they have been set within about 8 to 9 hours, and that's enough for me to get them out of the tins and cut them up or whatever, and the gel's been really stable. And it's surprising how much each pie can take. So there we have it. so far the pies are cooked, cooled slightly and gelled. So the next time we see these is when we're going to cut one open. Right then, let's get this pork pie sliced. We'll have a look at it. Oh, I could have put a little bit more jelly in that along the top. I thought it was full, but to be honest, doing it in the foils has worked out okay. It's got jelly at the sides, it's just on top. But when I filled it, it was all coming to the top anyway. Maybe next time I'll double check it. But there we have it, guys. This is how I make my pork pie. You can imagine that on a ploughman's board. Nice bit of cheese, mustard, pickles, and that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to have that for my lunch. But there you are, guys, that's how I make my pork pies.